Vice President J.D. Vance continues his Israel visit today with his mission to shore the fragile ceasefire in Gaza and advance the Trump peace plan. Vance said that the ceasefire is going better than expected. Speaking alongside Prime Minister Netanyahu at the Prime Minister's office, Vance had this to say.
As the Prime Minister said, these are days of destiny, and we're very excited to sit down and work together on the Gaza peace plan. We have a very, very tough task ahead of us, which is to disarm Hamas but rebuild Gaza to make life better for the people in Gaza, but also to ensure that Hamas is no longer a threat to our friends in Israel. That's not easy. I think the Prime Minister knows that as well as anybody, but it's something that we're committed to in the Trump administration. And I think we've, even in the past 24 hours, had a lot of good conversations with our friends in the Israeli government, but also, frankly, with our friends in the Arab world who are stepping up and volunteering to play a very positive role in this. But we actually see this as an opportunity to build on the Abraham Accords. I think this Gaza deal is a critical piece of unlocking the Abraham Accords, but what it could allow is an alliance structure in the Middle East that perseveres, that endures, and that allows the good people in this region of the world to step up and take ownership of their own backyard. That's in the United States' best interest. I happen to think that it's in Israel's best interest too.
Well, after 2 years of waiting, 2 more families from Kibbutz Nir Oz have received the remains of their loved ones. The bodies of 2 hostages taken on October 7th were returned to Israel yesterday evening. With all surviving hostages already freed, the focus has now shifted to those who were killed and whose bodies are still held captive in Gaza. For the latest, let's go now to ILTV's India Naftali. India, what can you tell us?
That's right, Emily. The bodies of 85-year-old Ari Zalmanovich and 38-year-old Tamir Adar were transferred back to Israel yesterday. Both men were kidnapped on October 7th from Kibbutz Nir Oz. Their remains were returned through the Red Cross and brought to Tel Aviv for identification. The 2 caskets, collected in southern Gaza, were transferred to the IDF, inspected, draped in Israeli flags, and honored in a brief ceremony led by the IDF chief rabbi. The remains were then taken to the Abu Kabir Forensic Institute for official identification, and families were notified several hours later. Ari Zalmanovich, 85, was kidnapped from his home and later died in captivity. He was one of the founders of Kibbutz Nir Oz. Israeli intelligence determined he was murdered in Gaza in November 2023. His family set Shiva in 2023, but until now could not hold a funeral. Tamir Adar, 38, was the deputy security coordinator of the kibbutz and was killed defending the community on October 7th. His body was abducted to Gaza by terrorists. Adar is survived by his wife, 2 young children, and his extended family. He has been posthumously promoted to Master Sergeant in the reserves. Meanwhile, another slain hostage, Ronen Engel, was laid to rest. A passionate motorcycle enthusiast, Engel's funeral procession was escorted by a motorcycle procession, with many riders carrying Israeli flags as his body was brought back to the kibbutz for burial. This week, 9 of the freed living hostages met U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and top White House advisor Jared Kushner, who were critical in securing their release. And in Tel Aviv, recently released hostage Matan Angest visited Hostages Square for the first time since being freed, seeing the images of himself in person for the first time. In Jewish tradition, giving a proper burial is sacred, and that's one reason why Israeli officials stress that the return of the fallen hostages is no less important than the return of the living. Now the focus is on the final 13 bodies still being held in Gaza, as families demand that the ceasefire agreement be carried out in full, with every hostage, dead or alive, brought home. Emily, back to you.
All right, India, thank you for that update. We'll be following this story closely as more bodies are hopefully returned to Israel. It's day 747 now of the war in Gaza and the 10th day of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The ceasefire has generally been holding, but not without incident. We have more now from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Amid the ceasefire in Gaza, 2 soldiers were lightly injured when their tank was hit by an explosive device in the Khan Yunis area. The 2 wounded troops were taken to hospital. The incident occurred during efforts by the forces to clear the area where they are stationed of potential threats, according to an initial military probe, no terror operatives were detected in the area when the bomb was detonated. The IDF is investigating when the explosive device was planted. The incident came 2 days after the ceasefire was tested, when gunmen emerged from a tunnel deep within Israeli-held territory in southern Gaza's Rafah and launched RPGs at troops, killing 2 soldiers and wounding 3 others. This prompted widespread IDF airstrikes. The U.S. then convinced both sides to return to a ceasefire. With the ceasefire holding, humanitarian aid trucks are entering, but the distribution scenes are chaotic as desperate residents jostle to collect supplies. There were calls for a more structured distribution system, with some calling for international agencies like UNRWA to handle the handover.
المساعدات هذه يا ريت تيجي بشيء رسمي تسلم لناس، يعني انا ما بقدرش، يعني انا بنفرم تحت العجل، فلا انا بتمنى الدول اللي برا يعني تسلمها لناس من هنا اللي هي الوكاله تستلمهن ويوزع علينا زي قبل ما كنا نستلم.
Earlier, Israel announced that it will only allow half the agreed number of aid trucks into Gaza. Kogat, the Israeli military arm that oversees aid flows into Gaza, blamed Hamas for the decision to limit aid trucks to 300 daily. Kogat also notified the UN that no fuel or gas will be allowed into the enclave except for specific needs related to humanitarian infrastructure. The statement by Kogat read, Hamas violated the agreement regarding the release of the bodies of hostages held in the Gaza Strip. As a result, the political leadership has decided to impose a number of sanctions related to the humanitarian agreement that was reached.
Well, as the fragile ceasefire continues to hold, albeit with caveats, here with us to analyze the situation is Ron Campius, the former bureau chief at the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. Ron, thanks so much for joining us today. I'd like to start by asking you your thoughts on the Trump administration's approach so far. We see now VP Vance here in Israel, strong statements from the White House, but certainly not giving Israel, the freedom to do whatever it wants when it comes to responding to Hamas violations, at least thus far. What's the end game here?
I think the Trump administration is just very eager to preserve this ceasefire. We're very eager to sustain it. They are clear-eyed about Hamas and how inherently unreliable it is as a partner, but it's obviously right now in this very moment, it's the only partner there is to sustain it. But they are also, as you can see from interviews with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner on 60 Minutes recently, they are not, they trust the Israeli government, but they're also wary of Benjamin Netanyahu and the pressures he's facing from the right, and they don't want it to, the exchanges of fire that we've had over the last few days, they definitely don't want that to escalate.
Certainly. Now, Hamas has returned, as of now, all but 13 hostage bodies so far. Do you believe that this terror group actually knows where more of these bodies are, as the Prime Minister's office has alleged? Or are they telling the truth when they say that they may not be able to recover some of these bodies?
I think that's very hard to say. Hamas, on the one hand, is completely in control of the areas that it controls. It's a totalitarian entity, and you saw the alacrity with which they found so-called collaborators with Israel and executed them and punished them. So they know where people are. They know where things are hidden. They're very good at that. On the other hand, during the 2 years that the hostages have been held, you have heard stories about how, first of all, on October the 7th. It wasn't just Hamas that came away with hostages. It was the other groups. It was also even civilians. And then you heard stories about people who were holding hostages who were killed. Perhaps the hostages were killed. Perhaps they'd already killed the hostages. And so where they would have put the bodies might have died with them. And so that's a very difficult open question. And again, it comes back to the fact that Hamas is inherently unreliable. And, the circumstances are plausible that they might not know where the bodies are, but they also, they might just be lying.
Well, Hamas is facing a lot of pressure over many things, but, most recently their executions of Palestinians in Gaza. But they are determined, as we've heard from their leadership just this week, to have a role in post-war Gaza governance and, of course, not to demilitarize. What can we expect to see from Phase 2, or will we even get there?
I think it's a big question as to whether we get there. I mean, the triumph of President Trump, and of his son-in-law Jared Kushner and of his envoy Steve Witkoff is simply getting to a really productive stage one in which the 20 living hostages were released and the gunfire has subsided, if not completely quieted. But the intractable elements that have frustrated stage twos in the past remain. Hamas wants to stay. Hamas does not want to disarm. Israel wants Hamas out. Israel wants Hamas disarmed. To the degree that they've compromised, it's basically only that I think Israel has agreed to the stipulation that Hamas leaders can leave and live out their lives quietly somewhere else, but not in the Gaza Strip, and that still remains a big obstacle. And it's one, I think, that's frustrating the Trump administration because Donald Trump really wants to get to a lasting peace here.
Now, in terms of security, I want to ask you, how risky is this international force that the U.S. Would like to see in Gaza? I mean, we're not talking about only friends of Israel. We're talking about some representation from the Turkish military, as well as others that will be involved on the ground. Is this something that you think Israel can or should accept in terms of security? And if not, I mean, is there even any alternative?
That's a big question. I think that Israel has always been wary of any other country, even the United States, securing its borders. It's always had it's why there have been where it's talk in the past in the United States by the most pro-Israel politicians, including the late John McCain, about bringing Israel into some kind of alliance, bringing Israel into NATO, and the resistance has come from Israel because, for very good historical reasons having to do with Jewish history, Israel does not want to second its security out to any other source, and certainly you have the risk there's a bigger risk in a way with close friends policing Hamas, because what if or policing the Gaza Strip, because what if there's a conflict between Israeli troops and the administrative troops of an ally? But yes, obviously Turkey is also a problem because of Erdogan and his expressed hostility to Israel and his alliance with Hamas. Although if you look at the internal politics of Turkey, the military is not necessarily aligned with Erdogan, at least in terms of his hostility towards Israel. And there is a rich tradition before Erdogan and even stretching into his decades-long administration of an alliance between Turkey and Israel. So all those factors, I think, would make the Israelis very wary of foreign presence in the Gaza Strip.
All right, well, we'll have to follow that closely as it develops and discussions continue for phase two. Unfortunately, we're out of time today, but I want to thank you, Ron Campius, for joining us today.
Thank you.
On October 7, I was here at the Nova Music Festival. I ran for my life, hid for 7 hours. Terrorists shot me twice. Thankfully, I survived. I'm still dealing with trauma, and I'm not alone. 3 million Israelis are in trauma. They need mental health care or physical rehabilitation. Wounded soldiers, families, and scared children.
Where IDF troops from the Mountains Brigade demolished several Hezbollah outposts on the Lebanese side of Mount Dov. The operation was carried out by the IDF Mountain Brigade, which celebrated its first anniversary with another successful result. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
In the nighttime operation, IDF troops from the Mountain Brigade operated beyond the border, demolishing several Hezbollah posts on the Lebanese side of Mount Dov. The operation was carried out by reservists and combat engineers of the 810th Mountains Regional Brigade. The IDF said that the posts were destroyed to prevent them from being used by Hezbollah to entrench itself in the area in the future. The move marks a continued effort by Israel to disrupt Hezbollah's infrastructure along the northern border amid rising tensions in the region. The IDF released new footage of the Mountain Brigade marking 1 year since its formation. The brigade is deployed along Israel's northern front, defending the strategic area from Lebanon's Mount Dov to Syria's Hermon summit. Over the past year, troops of the 810th Mountain Brigade carried out dozens of operations across both fronts. During Operation Northern Arrows, forces dismantled Hezbollah terror infrastructure in the Mount Dov region, uncovering underground tunnel routes and seizing large quantities of weapons. In Operation Bashan Arrows, conducted in the Syrian Hermon summit area, the brigade led the IDF's advance into the region and has maintained ongoing defensive and operational activity there ever since. The IDF said the Mountain Brigade continues to operate on both fronts, targeting terrorist infrastructure that threatens Israeli communities and working to ensure the security of civilians in the north.
Amid reports of policy clashes, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has removed his national security advisor, Tzachi Hanegbi, in a surprise move that takes effect immediately. A veteran Likud politician and close ally of Netanyahu, Hanegbi reportedly clashed with the prime minister over key war decisions, including the summer invasion of Gaza City and an unsuccessful strike last month targeting Hamas leaders in Qatar. His deputy, Gil Reich, will take over as acting national security advisor. Reich previously served as deputy director of Israel's Atomic Energy Commission. In his departure statement, Hanegbi thanked Netanyahu for the opportunity to serve, but called for a thorough investigation into what he described as the terrible failure of October 7th. He warned that the war is not over and that Israel's mission to bring home all hostages and disarm Hamas must continue. Hanegbi also urged national unity, saying it is essential to ensuring the eternity of Israel. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is facing global outrage after saying he would order the arrest of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if he enters Canada, a move that many call political theater and a national disgrace. Let's take a look. After his Palestinian state recognition, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has declared Canada would uphold the highly politicized International Criminal Court warrant against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The comment triggered an immediate diplomatic crisis and accusations that Carney is again caving to extremist pressure.
Justin Trudeau said that Canada would honour the International Criminal Court arrest warrants, i.e. Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to Canada. Does that stand under your leadership?
Yes.
You'd be prepared to do that?
The ICC warrant itself has been condemned by the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany as a dangerous overstep that politicizes international justice. The Trump administration went even further, imposing sanctions on ICC officials in response to what it called an outrageous attack on a democratic ally defending itself from terror. Legal experts have branded the ICC's action an exercise in political theater that sets a shameful precedent of criminalizing democracies fighting for their very survival. In Jerusalem, the Prime Minister's office called Carney's statement an unprecedented insult from a former friend, urging him to reverse course. Officials warn that Canada's position undermines its credibility on the world stage and emboldens those who seek to destroy the Jewish state. In Canada, the impact is equally troubling. Anti-Semitic incidents in Canada rose by more than 100% in the past year, the highest levels ever recorded. B'nai B'rith and the Simon Wiesenthal Center both warn that government rhetoric like Carney's is feeding a wave of hate and normalizing extremism across the country. From Toronto to Montreal, synagogues have been vandalized and Jewish students threatened on campus. Critics say Carney's embrace of pro-terror policies, from his naive decision to recognize Palestine to this promise to arrest Israel's elected leader, signals a dangerous turn for Canada itself.
That doesn't suit you.
I'm telling you what's right for you.
Listen to me, I know what I'm talking about.
Feels uncomfortable? That's just about clothing, something you can change tomorrow. But what about choices that last a lifetime? In Israel, over 30,000 women every year feel that their most fundamental right is taken away. The ability to choose. Financial pressure, pressure from a partner, pressure from family, or even that quiet voice whispering, "You can't do this." That's why FRAD exists. Not to tell her what to do, not to choose for her, but to isolate the pressure to enable a true free choice, whether it's emotional support, medical guidance, personal mentoring, career counseling, parenting education, or the most practical essentials. a crib, a stroller, clothes, diapers, baby supplies, food packages, everything she needs to make the choice she wants instead of the choice she feels forced to make. More than 89,000 women have already found the strength to choose and give birth. But it's not enough. We must give every woman the ability to choose. It is our moral and ethical duty. Every donation gives another woman the ability to choose. Every act of support means life for someone else. FRAT, giving hope to birth.
Well, Sharia law for thee, but not for me. The Islamic regime in Iran exposes its double standards as the daughter of a top Khamenei advisor appears bare-shouldered and without hijab at a luxurious wedding, while women in Iran are jailed or killed for far less. The wedding video that went viral shows Ali Shamkhani, a senior advisor to Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and former head of Iran's National Security Council, walking his daughter down the aisle in a strapless Western-style gown at a luxury hotel in Tehran. No hijab, no fear. The footage has sparked outrage across Iran, including from supporters of the regime, who say that it exposes the depth of elite hypocrisy. Shamkhani himself helped oversee the crackdown on women protesters in 2022, when the regime launched deadly attacks following the murder of Mahsa Amini. A UN fact-finding mission identified more than 500 killed and over 20,000 arrested in the 2022-2023 uprisings. Since April 2024, the regime's Noor plan has led to mass arrests of women and confiscation of assets, yet the elite faces no consequences. Women have been beaten, fired, or imprisoned for letting so much as a strand of hair show, while the daughter of one of the regime's most powerful officials celebrates in full view of the camera. This blatant hypocrisy, one set of rules for the masses and another for the powerful elite, underscores the authoritarian core of the Islamic Republic, where dress codes are used as weapons of control, especially for women, not culture. The situation on the ground in Iran continues to be volatile, with ongoing sporadic protests against the regime and a collapsing economy as the regime continues to prioritize terrorism funding over their own people. Just yesterday, chants of death to the dictator ran out on the metro in Tehran as hundreds called for the return of Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi inside Iran. Dissent rapidly growing as the majority of Iranians seek regime change. While the dictatorship holds on for now, the instability could lead to a mass uprising with any major event. And now in some sports news, the ECA declared on Tuesday that after 2 years of war and security concerns, Israel will now host their home EuroLeague and Eurocup basketball games instead of using a neutral venue elsewhere. ILTV's Devo Klein has the full story.
Israel's basketball courts have not seen a single EuroLeague game in 2 years. Due to Israel's war with Hamas, security concerns forced Israeli home games to be hosted in a neutral third-country venue. But now, the games can resume as the ECA announced that with the ceasefire in effect, Israel is now eligible to host their home games on their home courts. While Israeli basketball fans waited patiently to see basketball back in Israel, the players of Maccabi Tel Aviv and Hapoel Tel Aviv are excited about the news.
Yes, no, I'm definitely excited. Definitely coming to Maccabi, I was, expecting to play in front of a big crowd. Obviously, with everything that was going on, we didn't have that yet. So I know for the fans and for, just this staff and this the history of this program, we're definitely excited for the games to be back here. Definitely play in front of a home crowd.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 20 degrees Celsius or 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see sunny skies alongside hot temperatures, seeing highs of 31 degrees Celsius or 88 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our live channels, so you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.